Hello, Malcolm. I'm excited to be with you today because Philosophy Tube did a two-parter on our turf, pun intended, topic
Yes.
about demographic collapse and having kids. In the first part, titled "You're Wrong About Birth Rates and Aging Populations," which we covered in a separate episode. Philosophy Tube, aka Abigail Thorn, did an episode on demographic collapse, and then she ended it with like this whole skit about how I'm pregnant. And now here's the second part, and it's about having kids. And
and why what I found so interesting is, so this episode
yeah,
comes out.
yeah.
I could not bring myself to watch it. I found the first one so intolerable, but I really wanted to know what happens in it. So I'm so glad I have Simone to regale me. But the funniest thing is, so she watches it the day she watches it. She goes to me because we're doing our walk and talk that day. And she goes, "Oh my God." She basically admits that being trans is a social contagion in this episode without realizing it, because she interviews a bunch of other people about this.
I was just surprised by how she took out the big guns with this. Like Strange Aeons makes an appearance, and I'm like, oh my god, because we love Strange Aeons, the YouTuber.
Yeah.
Vivian Wilson, she wants to disassociate from Musk, but that Elon Musk's trans child is in it. It's titled, just in case you want to watch it yourself, "Why the Thought of Having Kids Freaks Me Out." And so obviously we have to cover it because having kids is kind of our thing, not to gatekeep or anything. But
not to gatekeep. I love it how that became our turf. Come on.
In general, I think that this in this video, Philosophy Tube is trying to bring some like trans representation to this surging debate about pronatalism and demographic collapse. And at first I got kind of excited about the fact that Philosophy Tube was doing this, right? Because like this, we could be presented with some innovative or interesting proposals, especially involving advanced reprotech, because here we're talking about clearly like biological innovation, right? Abigail Thorn is doing all sorts of things to become the type of person that Abigail wants to be, and when it comes to reproducing, has
that
a lot
can
of
have babies.
I mean, there are ways in which being trans can be very interesting, especially from a pronatal standpoint. And, you know, when we first even got into pronatalism, we're like, how do we make this movement one that is gay, like LGBTQ, trans, like all of it inclusionary? And yet instead in this video, we're basically presented with an astounding level of entitlement. Like take the normal level of urban monoculture entitlement, like, how dare you suggest I give up vacations and takeout to have kids, and then amp it up to a whole new level. Like literally forget contributing to society through well-raised children. I deserve reparations from the state for not funding my gender transition. Like that's the level we're at.
Wait, did she actually say she needed reparations from the state because the state, or rather the citizens, the non-trans people, didn't fund her operation?
Yes, she did. And we're going to get into it. So let's...
What?
I know. Yes. So anyway, let's dive right in because I'm so excited. So this video essay, part 2 of the whole pronatalism series, the dramatic bit of the video, because this is Philosophy Tube. A lot of people on our first video on this, when we talked about her first part, were like, oh, Abigail Thorn just wishes to be like ContraPoints. And both of them have these very dramatically lit, long philosophical video essays with great costumes, fantastic makeup. The dramatic bit to this particular Philosophy Tube essay involves Abigail Thorn dressing up as a mermaid, being, you know, analogous to being trans, as Abigail pontificates from a giant seashell or clamshell about sort of the trans approach to having children while using a lot of fish puns. And I love puns, so I don't necessarily mind any of it.
You know what's interesting about this analogy that you probably aren't thinking about?
Okay.
It's that fish do, like, inception within fish happens external to the body, like they don't.
I know. Well, no, it's very apt. It's very apt.
As it would, happen for a trans woman.
Well, Thorn even like talks about the fact that, you know, as a mermaid, Thorn doesn't reproduce like normal people. No, it is very apt. Like it's a fantastic, like I think that's well executed. You got to give credit where credit's due. But to put it diplomatically, the video ultimately legitimizes choosing not to have children while also critiquing the systems that make parenthood feel terrifying or impossible for many who might
You
otherwise.
told me the first thing she says was because of Gaza.
Pretty much. I mean, right off the bat, the focus is on philosophy, which is fair because this is philosophy too. But actually, the first thing she mentions is a reference to Why Have Children? The Ethical Debate, a book by Christine Overall. And then immediately she points people to David Benatar. I'm just like, I'm not going to get into it, but watch this video about him. So like immediately, you know, it's philosophy. So it's very abstracted from like brass tacks and reality. And it's, by the way, antinatalism, check it out, yo. She also leans heavily on a UN report that it explores people's reasons for not having babies. But yeah, one of the first sort of big theme that is explored philosophically in the video is global crises and concerns about the future being a major reason why people don't have children. Whereas, I mean, from our research, it's really why people say they don't have children when they don't have children yet, but really it's not an actual reason why people don't have children. But yes, she absolutely connects fears about having kids to global crises such as war, especially Gaza, and the targeting or dehumanization of marginalized groups, including trans and autistic people.
What does this have to do with kids? I don't understand. How does she?
Nothing. Well, no, she says in the video that she doesn't like the idea of bringing any child into the world where this could happen to any child.
But it's not going to happen to her. She's not going to have a child in Gaza.
You know, the UK government is funding this kind of conflict. But yeah, no, like this is about Gaza. This is where I was like, oh, this is where I feel like Philosophy Tube is giving us a greater argument as to why being trans is a social contagion than like a lot of the research on detransitioning, because I just feel like this shows the extent to which the major life choices and the way that Abigail Thorn relates to the world is so divorced from reality and so tied to like political aesthetics and philosophical aesthetics and concepts that, you know, this isn't about reality anymore. It's about signaling an affiliation, and that's what's going on. It's not some like deep inherent thing. It's so divorced. But let's continue to go through some of these arguments.
No, but I want to start.
Okay, go ahead.
Bad things are happening somewhere else. Therefore, I won't have kids here is a genuinely perplexing argument.
Well, what makes it even worse is a big a thing that Thorn points out too is I don't like that my country is contributing to this violence, as in like the UK is contributing to the war.
So she sees it as like punishing her.
But like country. if Thorn chooses to not have children, and then those children don't, you know, adopt Thorn's philosophy and change society for the better, then theoretically this continued violence against children elsewhere that Thorn is concerned about will continue. So that's another problem I have. It's like, okay, well, if you have an issue with it, then you also need to contribute toward something different.
Yeah.
Presumably. So you're going to see a lot of that in this, where Thorn will present an argument, and I feel like if you use the very same evidence or calculus that Thorn is using, you can neutralize the argument made. Like, no, actually, if bad things are happening in the world, as you've cited, the argument should be for having kids, because by having kids that create a better world, you can stop the bad thing. Like, this is...
Well, yeah, the thing is that kids are likely, as we point out, 80% of Republican parents have Republican kids, 90% of Democratic parents have Democratic kids, and kids move, sometimes more conservative as they age. It just changes based on the generation. The point being is she is denying the generation somebody who is more likely to be anti-Gaza, whereas people who do not care are having the same amount of kids that they did historically often.
Yeah, but again, we need to, a better argument is to do this on the terms that Thorn is using. Thorn is arguing based on like these philosophical approaches. And I think the more important thing is, okay, well, the philosophical approach here is world bad. I don't want to bring a kid into a bad world, especially a world that is contributing to the badness. Whereas using that very same line of reasoning, that is exactly why we should be wanting to have kids, is if world bad, we need to have kids that make the world better. But another big thing that Thorn points to is misinformation. Thorn argues that people are being misinformed about birth control and becoming pregnant by mistake after being scared off taking birth control. And Thorn also decries anti-vaccine rhetoric coming out of the Trump administration. I think that this was brought up in the video because of some like we shouldn't have kids because when we do get pregnant, it's by mistake or because of misinformation.
Well, I think this is a really interesting point, and I think it shows you their wider world perspective.
Yeah.
And so it's worth drilling on a bit.
Okay.
In the urban monocultural perspective, pregnancy is a scary thing that you're trying to avoid, right? Like you're going out and you're having lots of sex for fun. That is the main context at which you have related to pregnancy since you are a child. It's the scariest, it's the consequence of your actions, right? It's the big scary consequence to your lifestyle that you are terrified of. I actually was watching a video by I forget, the second season of Peacemaker.
Okay.
And it's pretty good. I actually like Peacemaker. I think it's pretty good Republican representation.
Was
But
this
anyway,
the one with that sociopathic younger dude who's so funny?
yeah, I love him. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, great. Okay.
But in one scene, oh no, it wasn't Peacemaker. This was in the monster DC Comics Monster World thing that they had on HBO. Anyway, it doesn't matter. On one scene, they were talking about how somebody who he was in the room was radioactive, right? Like due to their superpowers. And the guy was in like enough that I have to worry. And the guy was like, oh, just consider it a free vasectomy. Like this would be just a pure benefit, a surprise vasectomy, right? But in their world, it is. In their world, just somebody zapping you with it, like eugenics is like actually good, right?
Right.
And so when they see what they see as like a misinformation, the Republican administration, keep in mind what they think of like Republican voters or people who aren't on their team. They think of them, especially women who aren't on their team, right? Because they really look down on Republican women. They think of them as like hapless idiots who are obedient to men. And these hapless idiots who just, they do this with terms like pick me and stuff like that when they're talking about these women. They think that like they're just getting duped into, not being on birth control so they can enjoy their rightful daily sex amount.
No, the argument that Thorn used in this was, I was on birth control until I heard on social media that it would make me infertile and gay. And so I went to the natural rhythm method and immediately fell pregnant. That was the example that she used.
Well, that's exactly the point I'm using here, Simone. I'm pointing out that she thinks of these conservative women who use things like natural rhythm as just like completely idiots. In like that they're just hapless fools and that they should be, having sex all the time, e.g. I'm moving to the natural rhythm method instead of, as people saw in the recent Nick Fuentes, what was it, Piers Morgan debate, right? Where Piers Morgan is like chastising Nick Fuentes for being a virgin, and yet Piers Morgan is also purportedly a Catholic, right? Like presumably he doesn't believe you should be having sex before marriage either, and yet he's so normalized to this perspective that he's chastising Nick over it. And the idea of not having sex isn't even an option in their lives. It's not even a possibility.
Yeah, perhaps. Okay, well then maybe that explains it. I don't know. I don't know why that was still brought up in the question of to have kids or to not have kids. But another big one that or theme that is brought up is concerns about the future, like unemployment and housing and costs. And Thorn notes that even though she lives in the UK, access to services that she would need to use, like IVF, in order to have kids as a trans woman is expensive or not an option. Like the state, it would be very expensive if Thorn were to have children. Then the argument shifts to moral obligation. Like a lot of people feel that they have a religious imperative to have kids, but then she argues that, I don't know, they end up miserable. I think that's pretty much where she ends up on that. The idea of having a moral obligation to have kids if you don't want one, which we would argue is a bad idea that she points to, for example, like Jews after the Holocaust might be an example of this. And people have philosophically argued like, well, you as a Jew have an imperative.
I don't know any Jew who I've ever met who has kids who isn't glad they have kids.
Yeah, like who doesn't want them but has them because I'm a Jew and therefore the Holocaust. Yeah, it's really
they have this additional moral imperative, which I think sort of created something like pronatalism, like a proto-pronatalism within the Jewish community. And so it like made sense for them. But I think that there's also this idea of like the Holocaust matters more from an us versus them perspective than it does from a we need to breed for whatever reason. Like the progressive Jews aren't having kids because of the Holocaust, right?
Yeah.
Like they're having kids because they want little things to show off to other people. You know, it's the conservative Jews that are having kids because of the Holocaust, and they generally are pretty happy parents from what I've seen.
From what I've seen too, yeah. But then Thorn is like, well, this doesn't apply to me because I'm trans and I can't pass on my transness. As if like that is Thorn's identity, like the thing that would need, like my group, essentially like her Judaism is being trans. And if she can't pass on being trans, then this argument doesn't apply to her.
That's fascinating. I mean, what a sign that this is a social contagion.
Exactly. Again, like I just feel like this is such an interestingly, unexpectedly telling argument. Oh, also what I found interesting is, a lot of people do point to concerns about climate change as a reason to not have children. But actually, Thorn just totally discounts that as a factor because it's not up to the individual imperative. She actually decries even the very concept of the carbon footprint, pointing to the fact, and this is not illegitimate, but pointing to the fact that British Petroleum ultimately paid hundreds of millions of dollars to both manufacture and popularize the concept of the carbon footprint, and that is just manipulative. So this is, I feel like this contributes to this episode.
I do love that she pointed out. So she pointed out that the carbon footprint was invented by a PR firm that's paid, what was it, like $500 million?
Okay, Mather, like the really, really good one. I wanted to work for it when I was in college. I was like, ooh, wow, someday.
Ooh, carbon footprint. And it was specifically invented to remove responsibility from reducing environmental, like carbon gases from companies to individuals.
Yeah, it shifted the burden to individuals. And Thorn is like, don't you do that. Like, this is your fault. This is on you. I mean, I don't think that's illegitimate. It's just that this is another example, though, because we have to do this episode on how environmentalism is over, unless apparently you're a high school student, in which case it's like super alive and well. But that like people on every end, like Greta Thunberg, the mascot of environmentalism, now only cares about Gaza. Abigail Thorn is like, like don't worry about sustainability when it comes to having kids. When this used to be the main thing cited, like Harry and Meghan were like, well, we're not going to have more than 2 kids because the environment, our carbon footprints, right? And here you have Abigail Thorn, a progressive leader, saying, no, actually, that's not at all a relevant factor. This is not an individual choice thing. You have Bill Gates shifting funding away from his climate-related nonprofit initiatives with the Gates Foundations to just stuff focused around human well-being. Clearly, there's something really interesting happening with environmentalism, and in a separate episode, I want to get into that. But I do want to point out that this is another area where she's like, nah, this isn't a factor. So passing on her particular culture, which is trans culture, apparently, nothing else. Like that is what defines Abigail Thorn, which is so interesting. Again,
it is interesting.
What's fascinating is that she does seem to intuit very deeply that having kids is about passing on who you are to the next generation. But the only thing that is meaningfully left of who she is her trans identity.
All right, I'm not talking to that thing in your head. I'm talking to Skara.
Nothing of the host survives. Your friend had a feeble mind. It suffered greatly and gave in easily.
She has nothing else. And she's sort of conceding here. If she could pass that on to the next generation through having kids, she would. So she's showing that she understands why people have kids, the purpose of having kids, but that she has nothing left of who she is other than transness. And this is what we mean when we talk about it as being like an ideology that eats away at your self-identity till there's nothing left. This actually reminds me a lot of the episode we did on those feminists who will abort any male child that they're carrying because they only want to have female children. The idea of being deeply obsessed with passing your gender to the next generation or gender identity to the next generation because that is the lens through which you see all reality seems to show that you need to adopt this twisted perspective to accept the trans identity, at least in the way that Abigail Thorn has. Which is, like, you could be like, oh, well, you want to pass your gender. No, I don't. I don't care if I have boys or girls. In fact, we have half boys, half girls, and I really, I see them as different based on their gender in the ways that they present differently, but it's not a deeply important thing to me. It is a weird, and in a way, almost deeply conservative in like a historic context, like I am obsessed with the gender of my child, is troubling way to see reality and sad. Rather, it shows that at least when Abigail Thorn identifies as trans, she's not just saying, I feel more like a female. She's saying, I feel primarily or only like a female. Like that is the core of her identity through the fact that that's the only thing she cares about passing on to the next generation. Well, that and her career, but we'll get to that in a second.
And it's also interesting that none of these arguments actually have to do with the well-being of the child. The child's well-being and perspective seem completely irrelevant to her outside of it being a prop to reaffirm her own self-image, which I think is what it is not, and this is the key thing that actually is so important about the idea of transness of the social contagion. It is not the core of the social contagion is not wanting to be a different gender or even the idea that you can be a different gender. It's that the purpose of your life, the purpose of who you are and the core of your being is a role that other people see in you. Would be that role, to her, when she looks at a Jewish person, she's like, oh, the core of who they are is a Jew, which is like an act. It's like a set of, in the same way that I'm acting like a woman, they're acting like a Jew, right? Like, and that isn't the way that most cultures see or relate to identity. It's not
like,
a very healthy way.
If there were like a list of things I identify as, like woman would be one of the last things.
Absolutely one of the last, yeah. And I find this like really fascinating because I think it lays bare a problem that a lot of conservatives make when they talk on this issue is they attack things like somebody wanting to appear a different gender or the areas in which they, go over other people's social boundaries, like in a restroom or something like that, or whatever, women's prisons and stuff. Whereas I think that distracts from the more important point, at least in terms of the really bad psychological health you see within the trans community, with 50% attempting to unalive themselves, that is coming downstream of when I wake up every day and I'm like, why am I alive? My answer is to play X role and to have other people see me as X role. And I think that this also explains why people misgendering them hurts them so much. If your entire purpose, the only reason you exist is to play a specific role, and that is affirmed through other people saying, yes, I see you in that role, somebody not seeing you in that role is the most cutting thing that an individual can do to you. Whereas to somebody like me, I don't really care if you see me in X or Y role. The role that I inhabit is simply the role that I think will be most efficacious in achieving my goals for humanity and society.
Yeah. Like I was misgendered in a New York bar once when I had that really short hair, remember? I was so thrilled because the entire reason we had both decided it would be optimal for me to have really short hair would be for people to see me more like a man and take us more seriously as like an investment prospect. And so I was thrilled because again, it's instrumental. It is, we wanted to, the more masculine I was seen as being, the more we knew from like research, the more competent I would be seen as being, which is also why we started wearing big chunky glasses. People wouldn't like us as much. They wouldn't see us as approachable or attractive, but they would see us as smarter because of that and more competent because of that. And that would benefit us more given the strategic needs we had in life. But anyway, let me take it back to the moral obligation part of Thorn's argument, because this is where, after discounting the whole passing down your, I guess, like identity group's legacy, be it Jew or trans person, Thorn discusses the idea that having kids pays for the elder care of one's country's citizens. So therefore, one is obligated to have kids. And Philosophy Tube sees other people's kids as subsidizing her healthcare in old age as reparations because she is trans, and the government does not pay for all the gender transition care that she needs. Like, she and other trans people deserve to be for old age despite not having kids.
Despite not contributing to society or making the sacrifices that parents are making, and this, I think, shows the point. She thinks that the role that she desires to play, like the role that she has adopted for herself within society, is almost sort of like a divine calling, and that it should be respected by every other cultural group, which the government is taking money from to give to her.
Yeah, but like, she literally, as she puts it in the episode, that she's like flippant and joking about it, but she's also totally serious kind of about the reparations thing. She's like, "You're goddamn right, breeders are going to be paying for my retirement." And I'm like, oh, okay, you've made your point. So anyway, her steelman arguments for having kids are incredibly weak. It shows that, I don't think it shows that she doesn't actually want kids. In fact, I'm about to argue that she actually really does want kids. But she hasn't thought through why. And you can tell this by the steelman argument. So the first is, she's like, well, the only thing is, like, maybe enjoyment, which she points out is by no means guaranteed, as she puts it. So, like, okay, well, we can't then choose to have children for enjoyment because that's not a guarantee. So then the other one that she points to is legacy, though she personally has a lackluster desire to pass on genes, again, because she is the only trans person in her family and she feels like she's not necessarily going to have more trans. So again, very interesting that she's like, well, how, like, trans is the entire identity, apparently. Like,
trans is the
and I think she likes her family. Like, that's the crazy thing, is I don't think she hates her family, but just, like, apparently everything else that's not trans about her is not really worth passing on. And then Philosophy Tube also notes that, like, okay, if we're talking legacy and it's not genes, then, like, maybe her career, but she argues that her career and acting legacy can't be passed on, so that's a point against having kids. But here's the really crazy thing, Malcolm, and here's another example of where the same philosophical arguments or same, like, evidence bits that she uses could also equally be used against her, because she then points in a very sort of dramatic moment, because she's also an actor, and as an actor has to be very dramatic. She refers to and quotes some of Shakespeare's Sonnet number 2 as a steelman, which apparently sort of refers to, like, looking in a kid's eyes and sort of seeing that as, like, a pathway to legacy, right? And I don't know Sonnet number 2, but ironically, I only know and have memorized one sonnet by Shakespeare, Sonnet number 18, which also talks about eternal life, essentially. It's a love poem. It's the one that's, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate, etc. Right? So it's comparing a lover to summer. But then it talks about eternity. So, God, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. So, like, like, summer kind of sucks. The weather's bad.
How do you know this?
But blah, blah, blah. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor shall I lose possession of fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, for eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. You see what he's saying there? He's saying basically, as long as this poem lives, your legacy shall live. So the argument of the sonnet, I mean, I don't know analysis of it. My mom just made me memorize it as a kid because she loved Shakespeare. What Shakespeare, I think, is saying here is like, hey, I'm a famous dude. I'm writing this poem. This poem is going to live well beyond the two of us, and this poem is going to live forever. So my love for you, as expressed through this poem, is aligned to eternity and eternal life, and you will be forever young and beautiful in this poem. Unlike a capricious summer day with changing weather, the sun's too hot, the wind's too powerful, it sucks. And this very argument points to the fact that no, actually, this acting legacy that Abigail Thorn is trying to build, and Abigail Thorn's ideas are a lasting legacy that absolutely can be reinforced and strengthened through children. So I just personally feel like, okay, we've thrown in Shakespeare's sonnets. I see your sonnet number 2 and I raise you sonnet 18. And I'm just like, again, miffed by this whole thing. But here's where we get to why I think PhilosophyTube is having this argument in the first place, and why I think PhilosophyTube actually really wants children.
Which is, before you get to that, I want to go into something because I thought it was really interesting. When she talks about her identity, when she's like, and in a way, this is why you have kids, to pass on something. You know, I think legacy is like not legacy for a selfish reason, but because I like who I am and what I represent and what my people represented. I want more of that in the future, right?
Yeah.
That's how you motivate reproduction. That's why people have kids, right? And that once you are infected with this ideology, the only two things that she was able to think of as meaningfully her is her gender, her identity as a trans woman, and her career.
Yeah.
And nothing else. And that is so the core of the urban monoculture and how it works. When you meet somebody, you ask, what's your job? And you present with what's your gender. And the other things that many people would consider more core to who they are, their philosophy, why they live, you know, what they're fighting for, their culture, their et cetera. None of this stuff is actually important to her, right? None of this stuff, she doesn't have a wider purpose in life other than, and you can see this with her channel, other than acting out her role, which is, I think, a deeply sad thing, but it shows that I think that this spreads beyond just talking about like a trans individual, like the trans community, to the wider urban monoculture, to many young people who are raised in it. When you say like, what are you? Who are you? They say, my job and my gender.
Yeah. But I still think in the end, that PhilosophyTube does feel deeply conflicted about not having children. And I think this because the way she has chosen to engage with this debate, to make a video and solidify her stance, to add her stance to the blockchain of online social discourse in this very methodical and dramatic way, is because there is this cognitive dissonance that Thorn is now trying to resolve officially by being like, and here are all the reasons why I'm not doing it, and I'm right to make this decision. And I say this because I grew up and spent my young adult life, at least, being fully and extremely happy to live alone, never get married, never have kids. And I never, ever felt the need to defend my stance on this or even to debate it. I was just like, it's not for me. It's not.
Yeah,
for
nobody was ever like, oh yeah, that's bad.
Good. Yeah, good for anyone who wants to do this. And like, it was so like, I just found the discourse too oppressively boring to even want to be involved with. Like, it's just not my domain. Like, I'm not going to talk about football because I don't care. Okay. And there are people who will talk about like their entire channels devoted to this, TV channels and publications and all this, right? There's constant streaming of sports and I have nothing to do with it. And it is many people's lives and careers and everything. And they're dying over it and all, you know, like industries, right? And the same exists with families and children and all that. This isn't the only reason why people get involved in this is because they care. And I do know of some, like there's a Dink podcast out there. I don't think it has a lot of following, but like two girls do it. And a lot of it's just sort of about like how much they enjoy like having disposable income and stuff. And I don't think they feel cognitive dissonance around having kids because it's genuinely about the euphoria. It's like, I love having all this money and freedom. Like this feels so good. And that's how I felt. But I didn't really think about it like in contrast to having kids. I was just like, I love my life. Like I love not having to answer to anyone and having flexibility, blah, blah, blah. Like it's great. And like, I do think then that there are some people who talk at least about just like Dink or childless discourse about just how great it is. But what Thorn is talking about here is like all the reasons why people are trying to argue you should have kids, like legacy and all these other things, and trying to tear it down, but unsuccessfully so, in my opinion, at least. And I also know of other YouTubers who regularly talk about their choice to be child free from this very defensive standpoint of like, I feel so much like people are always asking me like, when am I going to have kids? And like, I feel so criticized and so looked down upon for this. And you get this feeling too from Thorn in this essay of like, that there's this feeling of defensiveness, like society thinks that I'm letting it down. No, society owes me reparations. Like that comes from a very defensive place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, no one asked you. Like you, again, she's on our turf. And I get off my lawn, lady.
Get off my lawn, lady. I love you, Simone. No, but it is interesting when people talk on the subject because I want to be like, what's the state of the public conversation?
Yeah.
How are different people relating to this? You know,
Yeah.
what's going through the public's mind on this topic? And she is a popular, you know, YouTuber.
Way more famous than us, like absolutely. And I'm just a little disappointed because we actually do personally know trans people who are having kids right now, who are starting families, who are like absolutely involved in pronatalism and in really interesting, cool ways. And now I'm just about to start outlining an episode on cyber feminism and xenofeminism. And like, I'm all about like gender innovation and gender play in weird ways, because what is that? That is cultural innovation in an age of technological and geopolitical and everything disruption, right? Mm-hmm. Like, absolutely, I am for weird approaches to pronatalism, and I'm for a critical approach to everything related to fertility and society and all that. And while you and I have our concerns about trans culture in general and like the way it exists now, I don't think you and I inherently or like deeply philosophically have anything against like being gender weird, like whatever, you know, like just like maybe don't build your life, as you've been pointing out repeatedly, like around an identity. Like, what is this? Like, how is trans the thing she thinks she needs to pass on or not pass on? Like, how is that?
Just love it. You could pass it on. I mean, we've seen a lot of, there's those families where they get like, they adopt a bunch of kids and they all end up trans.
Yeah, no, and yeah, like, so yeah, and see, that's another example. Is it just really bothers me that like every time she argues, like, well, like she makes a philosophical argument, we could use the same argument against her. And that really also bothers me. It's like, no, actually people pass on transness all the time because it's a cultural contagion. But I guess she can't do that.
Right, but what's interesting is, and this is what's so fascinating.
Yeah.
You could attempt to pass on a culture that accepted trans people, like a culture in which trans people are part of how you relate to gender, how you relate to sexuality.
Yeah, well, and also a culture in which you know, include in your nationalized healthcare gender-affirming care. Like, if Thorn feels like she deserves reparations for having the state not pay for that, then create a generation of people who will pay for gender-affirming care.
Right, but the point here being is she could have passed on the culture in which trans as a concept exists.
Yes.
But, and I think that this sort of proves that it's a cultural contagion, that is meaningless to her. You do not accept that culture in a meaningful way to her unless you are yourself trans. The culture in which the trans framework exists is not meaningfully passed on unless it is passed on alongside a trans identity from her perspective, which I think lets the cat out of the bag.
Yikes. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean by that, Simone?
Yeah.
Very few other cultures would say something like that.
Yeah. That like it's not enough to accept me, you have to be me.
Yeah, it's not enough to accept my unique sexual or gender representation or accept a culture that has this gender and sexual orientation. In many ways, it's very much like the parents who hate their kid for like being gay or something like this, right? Where it's, I've only meaningfully passed it on to the next generation if they have the same orientation I have.
Yeah.
And these specifically here, I'm talking about the parents who hate their kids for being gay, not for like religious reasons or whatever, but just because they see it as like effeminate and not like them, right? Like it's the exact same energy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I honestly wish that I could meet Thorn in person and just talk and like better understand the approach taken. Like this episode, there's so many mysteries in it. Like I didn't even talk about this huge diversion in the episode that is dedicated toward discussion of a small independent film called Castration Movie, which is about basically horrible trans people, in which the protagonist, called Traps, struggles with the knowledge that kids will no longer be possible due to their gender transition-driven infertility, among other things.
Tell me about this. I'm unaware of this.
I just like, it's such a, like, I'm like, why did you throw this in? I don't understand.
There's a group of people who call themselves Traps?
No. That's the protagonist of the independent film Castration Movie, which Philosophy Tube uses in this essay to, I think, primarily just be supportive of other transgender media efforts, but also like emphasize a major through line about how gender norms shape expectations around motherhood and fatherhood, and how like trans and queer people can feel especially conflicted about these roles. But it's very distracting. It's a weird diversion, and it doesn't, I don't think she quite brings it home in her video essay the way that maybe she would want to. But I don't know. I mean, at least I feel like I was able to grok more of this particular video essay of Philosophy Tubes than most of the ones that I watch, because typically I just get totally lost. Whereas like maybe because I feel so much ownership of this particular philosophical domain, not ownership, but at least I've spent so much time sitting in it that like I was able to engage with it better than like some other things that have been discussed on the channel. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't even mention that whole thing. Like that was like, what, Castration Movie? Why are we talking about Castration Movie?
She's no ContraPoints, I'll tell you that.
Everyone in the audience, no, none of us can be ContraPoints. And I know you don't want me to say that because like our audience probably hates ContraPoints too. But listen,
no, I heard apparently there's like a bunch of rumors that like early on when she transitioned Philosophy Tube, she tried to like look and act and sound exactly like ContraPoints.
I want to look and act and sound like ContraPoints. Just lick some salt.
Our audience isn't gonna love you for that one, Simone.
She's pretty.
Is she?
I think
she's got the angles because she's online and she cares to have the angles. You barely know how to use makeup, Simone.
Shut up. No, your mom would be so offended. She invested so much in trying to get me to learn how to use makeup.
My mom would say you use makeup like I found you in like a country barrel or something, you know, like. She
kept taking me to like all the makeup counters and having me like go through like makeup put on sessions and be like, now Simone, practice. And she'd like, oh, poor
it's like you're entering high court. She's trying to, like one of my Korean romance dramas.
Yeah.
She's trying to get you ready to go to the gala.
It made me feel so nice because my mom really had a difficult relationship with female.
It was gender-affirming care, Simone.
But no, genuinely though, like all female, like plastic surgery and makeup is gender-affirming care. And I think that we need to have more open conversations in society about the fact that things like Botox or facelifts, or especially like female youth-inducing procedures that women undergo, are just forms of gender-affirming care, especially when they're dimorphic. Like I could imagine like maybe a neck lift with which both men and women get to look a little bit more healthy and youthful. That's not necessarily gender-affirming care. But I would say the vast majority of the cosmetic procedures that women are getting is gender-affirming care. And like, don't act like you're holier than thou. Like this whole Mar-a-Lago face thing, like, sorry, ladies, like you are no better than all of these trans people that you were decrying. Like you were doing exactly the same thing.
No, I agree. I think the Mar-a-Lago face, it's weird. It's gross. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
These people look like Planet of the Body Snatchers got them. Yeah. And
as that Snow White actress put it, weird.
What did she say that about?
The fact that the prince was a stalker of Snow White, because God forbid she be protected.
Ugh, gosh, she could have accepted the stalker vibes like the Ballerina Farms lady.
And they're living very happily with 8 children. I love their Instagram so much.
We have to catch up. We got to catch up. They're 2 ahead of us.
They started early and they were Mormon. I feel like we're actually doing pretty good being what you could argue is overeducated tech elite, you know? We're not even like, I don't want to call ourselves elite because we really don't. Only other people have called us elite, but I mean,
I'm elite. I'm elite. Hold on, I'm elite.
Okay,
you
I'm
might
sorry.
not be.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, we are overeducated.
Simone,
tech elite.
I grew up believing I was elite.
That's
like,
true.
I always have believed I was better than other people. I just need the world to show me.
Well, no, you are better than other people. This is true. I mean, I know it is a fact because I was never, ever, ever, ever going to marry anyone, let alone spend extended time with anyone. And the fact that I can tolerate anyone just kind of shows that you're not only elite, you are like a demigod, at least demigod status, because there's just no way that I could even
That's what you need
tolerate
your
a
wife to think
human.
of you people, by the way.
Yeah, I genuinely question whether you're human sometimes in the best possible way. You are just so above and beyond romantically, looks wise. Oh my God. Malcolm is going to soon, well, not soon. He's starting to get not gray hairs, but literally white hairs. He's going to have the most beautiful white head of hair.
There's a thing in my family, so we'll see if I keep it. But my hairs are coming in white, yeah?
Yeah, no, they're coming in. Just Gort, you're going to be a silver fox. We're old, guys. I am turning, what? I'm turning 38
37,
tomorrow.
I think.
No, 38. I am 37. I'm turning 38 tomorrow.
30, wait, am I 39?
Yeah, you're 39. You're turning 40 next year.
That can't be true. I'm pretty sure I'm 38, Simone.
No, you turned 39 because what is next year? 2026.
Oh.
You
Wow.
were born in 1986. You're turning 40 next year. We old.
Oh no.
I know.
I'd be having an existential crisis if I didn't have 5 kids, I'll tell you that.
Let's see. Will you have 6 kids by the time? No. When you turn 40, God willing, I will be pregnant, but not. So you'll have your 6th kid on the way, hopefully. But yeah. Anyway, how do we get to mortality? Let's end this.
Tonight, orange beef. Trying it for the first time. Very excited. Don't go overboard with the pepper if it's included in the recipe, so you don't end up.
By pepper, you mean ground black pepper? Or do you mean the red?
Ground black pepper seems to be
Thai
causing
chili
the most
peppers.
coughing.
Do you want Thai chili peppers?
Yes, I do want Thai chili peppers.
Okay.
And I do want anything else.
Do you want it with rice? I'm making sourdough again tonight because we're not heating that part of the house, and I've discovered that using the oven makes it not so cold.
So I would love it with rice.
Okay.
I'm sorry to ask. And the peppers that we got and chives.
Yep. Okay. Do you also want for heat Thai red chili peppers sprinkled in there or not? Okay.
Yes. The Thai red chili peppers and then the green shiitake peppers or whatever they're called.
Okay.
Shashkabe.
Yeah. I love you so much. I love you. And I hope that Abigail Thorn gets what she wants from life.
Which is reparations. Reparations.
I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, sadly, here's the really depressing thing is by the time Abigail Thorn will probably need elder care from the government, the UK government's not going to be able to provide it. And that's disturbing.
Yeah, she'll get a letter from Maid like they have in Canada.
Have you considered? Oh my God. I want the best for her. I just want everyone to be happy.
Some people choose a life path that precludes genuine happiness.
No, I actually think that Abigail Thorn has fun.
You don't life path in
you don't dress up in a mermaid costume like that and not have fun.
You do it if you're trying to convince the world that you're happy with the role you have chosen of lifelong theater kid. But if you live your life to live a role, you almost definitionally will never be satisfied because especially when most people don't see you as genuinely embodying that role. Mm-hmm. Her entire life is an act, and I think that she's
I feel like, people who live dramatically, I mean, there are high highs and low lows, but it's just, it's entertaining. Maybe that's what you go for. Like, besides, do we even value happiness? But I still somehow just want everyone to be happy. I don't know, whatever.
I'm not talking about happiness here. I'm talking about like genuine satisfaction. The thing that, what people actually strive for, right? This really only comes from achieving your goals. Anyway, Love you, Simone. If those goals are like well thought through and you sacrifice for them.
Yeah. Anyway, it was interesting. Thank you, Abby Thorn. Thank you, Philosophy
Thank you for
Tube.
tanking that for the entire base camp audience. We really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, as always. Bye, guys. You did? Oh, you did. Look at you. Look at you. Okay, just putting down this bottle. What are you doing? Just
Playing a game.
Playing a game.
On my
Knick-Knack,
legs.
paddywhack. Isn't that what Knick-Knack, paddywhack is? Where you like
it's like a game where you like hit in a pattern or something.
I thought it was where you play the fork and spoon instrument. You know, where you like, gosh, I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Nobody knows what Knick-Knack, paddywhack is, Simone, but they do know that you give a dog a bone.
Yeah. This is
and
true.
who knows what our kids know about? They know about Among Us.
They, if only they didn't. Oh my gosh. And the 6-7. I like what. What's so funny is that a meme so dumb as 6-7 manages to like create its own lore, and our kids are like, I saw the 6-7 kid outside, and I'm like, there is no like, just forget it, you know, whatever. Is it just me or do you look blurry?
Let's have a look. I look fantastic. I'm as sexy as I've ever been, and you're fortunate about that. You get to be married to this.
No, it's true.
Piece of. I love it that so many people don't like the way I look. Well, then it's good that Simone got to marry me because she does, right? Like, I'm not waiting. It doesn't matter what I look like to you. It matters what I look like to her, right?
It's true. You are what I would have referred to as a child, a hunk biscuit, which was our family's internal term for stud muffin, because one of the family members couldn't remember the term stud muffin, but they said hunk biscuit instead. So
they said hunk biscuit. Did you see any hunk biscuits growing up? Did they say, "Hey Simone, have you seen that hunk biscuit at school or whatever?"
Well, all my friends started picking up hunk biscuit, so then yeah, we refer to people as hunk
the
biscuits.
base camp community. They want to be hunk biscuits.
Yeah, you want to become a hunk biscuit. You are my hunk biscuit. I would rather have a hunk biscuit than a stud muffin. Like if they were foods, like if I was at a bakery and I was choosing from a menu, I would definitely want a hunk biscuit.
Who wants muffins?
I know. What? Really? That? Well, you liked my pumpkin muffins. You did.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So there you go. But no, generally muffins, it's like either be a cupcake or don't. Stop with this muffin.
Yeah, you cook muffins for the family, which is great. You do corn muffins too, which are really good.
Yeah, I still haven't managed to recreate the cornbread I had as a child, which was just so good. So I'm mad about that. We'll get there eventually.
How is the cornbread you make today different or wrong?
I don't know, because I'm using stone ground cornmeal. I'm using the flour, the sugar, it was a really simple recipe. I should make it in a square glass Corningware pan, because that's how my parents did it. And then we'd cut it into squares, so it was like normal cornbread, not biscuits. Maybe that's what I should try. Okay, I will try.
Ask your dad.
Oh yeah, he'll have to have the recipe. There was this brown plastic recipe card box that my mom had. Oh God, maybe. I think he's still in Alameda. I gotta ask him for that. Anyway, we'll get into this because I'm gotta do this episode. Poor Abigail Thorn. Not safe from us. Okay, you ready? Yeah. Okay.
My orange chicken cooking.
Yeah. Like you just ask it and it'll just